So, was Jim Jones really that influential in influencing hip hop fashion? And the answer is for a period of time, absolutely. What is good, y'all? It's your boy Mixtape Moth. If you are rocking with this content, go ahead and smash that like button. Also, subscribe if you haven't. So, we have had the Nas Jim Jones debate, and I'm sure we're all fatigued from that. And that is not going to be the direction of this video. But I do want to take a moment to make it crystal clear for my Nas heads out there that Nas is my GOAT. And at no point in this video am I trying to suggest that Jim Jones is on Nas's level whatsoever. Right? That's just not the case. So, big Nas fan over here. That being said, though, I've seen some discourse online revolving around Jim Jones's fashion sense and the role that he played in influencing hip hop fashion. And some people are giving Jim his flowers for fashion. Others are discounting it. So I do want to take a moment to address that in this video. Now, on a personal note, I'd consider myself to be somewhat of a stylish person. I'm not saying I'm the most stylish in the world, but I do strongly believe that I have a pulse as to what's going on. And I've studied the different eras in hip hop fashion over the years. I remember it pretty much all since the early 90s when I became a fan. So I was there for a lot of it, and I remember the trends. Now, if I may just kind of quickly retrace what hip hop fashion looked like in the early 2000s, the clothing, a lot of the clothing, of course, was ridiculously oversized. You had Rockefeller doing what they did regarding fashion. Just recall the clothing in that first State Property movie. Sean John and G Unit both had their own aesthetics going, of course. You even had artists like Papoose and Cassidy both making slight waves for their respective looks. Again, this is just a brief, quick snapshot. It's not everything, but down south, you might have seen more tall tees, not exclusively down south, of course, but just reflect back to that crime mob, Knuck If You Buck cover art. And how can I forget, of course, in New York, Dipset. They put their own very unique spin on that early to mid 2000s New York flavor. And look, whether you love Dipset or you don't, their influence on fashion was extremely massive. You likely went to the locks for the bars, but if you were really into what was popping fashion-wise, you might have been more attracted to what Dipset was doing. So around 2005, 2006, there was no Instagram, obviously, no Twitter. So if you weren't living in a popping place like New York, where would you get your fashion pics or pictures of rappers wearing their latest clothes? Probably somewhere like MySpace, if you're old enough to remember. And I personally remember in 2005, 2006, seeing a slight shift in the hip hop fashion game, going from oversized to more slimmer fit. And you know who was one of the main people I feel that was responsible for this shift? It was Jim Jones, whether you like him or not. I do vividly remember Jim Jones was one of the first people that started to wear the slimmer pants. He incorporated that rock star aesthetic and mixed it with streetwear. There was even the chrome heart stuff that he wore frequently back then, which is obviously extremely huge now, but that was still big in the mid to late 2000s. At this time, you would see Jim Jones wearing brands like Ed Hardy, Christian Audigier, even Affliction. And this was when, let's be real, a lot of the rappers were still wearing tall tees, dressing like characters from The Wire. One of the greatest shows of all time, but let's be real, that was definitely a look that rappers still had at this time. So I was influenced enough personally to purchase Ed Hardy, to rock some slimmer fitting jeans for the time, and even buy a BB Simon belt. Yes, those crazy glittery belts that people probably refer to as a Dipset belt. This is around the time when people in other cities, other regions may not have caught on. They're wondering like, bro, what kind of look is this? What are you doing? However, around '07, '08, and even later, a lot of people eventually started to make that transition into more slimmer fitting pants and adopting that rock star aesthetic with the graphic tees. Joel Santana was pretty big with this look as well around the time of Jim, and that led to someone like Wayne popularizing that look for the South, since Lil Wayne and Dipset were so tight. And you have to remember, this really wasn't Killa Cam's look at the time, but Jim Jones and Joel's, particularly Jim Jones, was on to that next wave before others were. Now look, I also realize that when Jim Jones's name is brought up in any positive light, many people immediately will cite Max B as the main influence. And look, Max B also had that rock star aesthetic going on 100%. And some folks may want to credit him for that entirely. And you know what? He could have invented it. It's very probable. I'm not overlooking that. But I also know that Max B did go away for a large period of time, unfortunately. So as a result, right or wrong, Jim Jones was the main person that everyone saw ushering in this new style. Now, you could also say that Stax bundles could have influenced Jim Jones. RIP to Stax. His life was unfortunately cut short, but it was still Jim Jones who ultimately was at the forefront of that style movement for most people. But if you get back into the timeline, that rock star aesthetic continued to grow into 2007, 2008, 2009, and you eventually get into the blog era where it just kind of became commonplace for a lot of artists to just rock tighter fitting clothes. And fast forward to today, we can see some of that mid to late 2000s look coming back in real time. Although the pants are baggier now, but there's still that chrome hearts presence, the luxury graphic street tees, and some have even tried to bring back Ed Hardy somewhat. And you just continue to see that rock star fashion meets high end meets streetwear that someone like Jim Jones did help to popularize in the mid to late 2000s. So am I suggesting that Jim Jones deserves all the credit? Am I suggesting that he solely created this own lane? No, but he definitely helped to spearhead it. Now, I'm well aware that Jim Jones is not likable for many people at this point for obvious reasons. I don't agree with the statements he made. I did a whole video on it. I thought they were bogus statements and that he needed to be checked. But I don't think that you can realistically take away the influence that Jim Jones has had on fashion in hip hop years. Musically, not so much, but fashion, he's had some influence. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I do plan on soon doing a video on the best dressed rappers of all time or the most stylish hip hop artists. So you can expect that coming sooner than later. It's your boy Mixtape Muff. I'm out.